Alright guys, I just wanted to show y'all something here. If you ever wonder why people in these GMT 400s, and there's several groups. There's GMT 400, there's Obsessed, spelled with a capital OBS. These Denalis, the 99 Denali, 2000 Denali, 99 Escalade, 2000 Escalade, they are part of this GMT 400 family. That's what GM calls it, GMT 400. This family right here. Kind of squared-ish front end. Even though these are kind of in between the old body style and the round body style, because they have this kind of rounded off front end. If you ever hear people talk about how bad the running gear sucks on these, I'm going to show you why. Now, this is 6-inch suspension lift on 3-inch body lift with only 35s on it. Yeah, I know that's kind of small for such a big lift, but I want to show y'all guys this. Let me get under here. Alright, so this is the front chunk right here. Notice I don't have a CV axle in there. I've had this truck right at 35 days. We have been on 6 rides in it. 3 of those rides were 2-wheel drive only. Because I had this broke CV axle right up here. If you're wondering how to do this, how to keep your bearing together, just pull your CV axle apart and stick the stub back through there and torque the nut on the outside out here back down to what it's supposed to be. I think it's 165 foot-pounds on this one. Don't just torque it to that. Look up your torque specs, because that will improve your bearing life dramatically. Here's what I wanted to show you. You see that? That whole mount right there is cracked. Now, the guy that did this lift actually did it right. He put 456 gears with a torsion style locker in the rear end back there. He put an aftermarket cover on it. I'm not real big on those because they're the style he put is just a thin metal one, and they tend to leak where the drain plug is. And yes, it has a drain plug on the cover. But this is why people talk about how poor the drivetrain is. Like I said, this was 3 rides that I had 4-wheel drive, and we broke that mount off, which is one of the main mounts. Yes, you've got another one right over here, and you've got one on top on this side right here. But for strength's sake, that shouldn't have broke. No bigger tires than I have, no harder than I drove it. That shouldn't have broke. So, where do we go from here? Well, if we want to keep 4-wheel drive, we have 2 options. We can pull all this lift off, cut these brackets off, and do a solid axle swap. Or we can take our CV axle on this side over here and break it or pull it apart and put the stub back through like we did over here. Then essentially we'll have two-wheel drive. None of the front end parts will pull. We can pull this front drive shaft out, and we can pull this front chunk out and put another one in it. The problem with that is we would have to re-gear it to 456 gears. Now, our gears in this chunk are still good, which means we could reuse those. But if we've had that problem once, chances are we're going to have it again. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this apart and see if we can get a 3/4 ton front chunk to fit in here. Now, I'm sure there'll be some brackets that had to be made for this top mount, or adapters, and for this bottom mount, and for those two mounts over there. The thing about it is, though, with this truck being lifted, I might be able to just build that whole bracket right there, and then build an adapter for right there, and this bottom should bolt up. But I just wanted to let you guys see that, and I guess we'll go from there.